Jack sat alone in his wooden cabin, the knife in his hand moving slowly across the whetstone. The sound was steady, almost calming, a rhythm he had lived by since he left the world of men behind. The jungle outside was wild and alive, but inside the cabin was his fortress of silence. No orders, no gunfire, no voices but his own. For years, this was all he wanted. After the war, he walked away from everything. Cities, people, noise. Solitude was his salvation, and the jungle gave it to him without question. Here, he could breathe. Here, he could forget. Or so he thought. That night, as rain battered the roof and thunder cracked in the distance, something broke the stillness. A sound Jack knew too well. The groan of old hinges, the creak of his cabin door. His hand left the knife and found the rifle by his side. The soldier inside him woke in an instant. He rose, silent, steady, every step careful across the wooden floor. No one should have been here. No one even knew how to find this place. The door pushed wider, and lightning flashed across the room. A figure stood there. Jack froze. His grip tightened on the rifle, but his breath caught. It was a woman, soaked from the storm, trembling, her long black hair clinging to her face. Her skin gave off a faint glow, not like sweat, not like rain, but something unnatural, something not of this world. Her eyes, bright silver, wide with fear, locked onto his. For a moment, neither moved. The storm raged behind her, but in the cabin there was only silence. Then her lips parted. Her voice was soft, breaking, almost a whisper. "Please, I need shelter." Jack did not lower the rifle. His instincts screamed caution, but there was something in her voice, in her trembling hands, that made hesitation creep into him. She stepped inside, dripping water onto the floor, and glanced at his bed. Her voice shook again. "I am cold. May I share your bed?" Just for warmth, Jack's jaw tightened. He had fought through battlefields. He had seen cruelty and beauty twisted together in war. But this was something else entirely. And deep inside, he knew his life of silence was over. The storm lasted until dawn. Jack hardly slept. The stranger rested on his bed, curled in the blanket like a fragile bird, her faint glow making the cabin walls shimmer in the dark. Jack sat in his chair with the rifle across his lap, watching her, trying to convince himself this was not a dream. When morning came, the jungle sang again. Birds filled the trees, and the air smelled of wet earth. Jack rose and stepped outside, scanning the trees with the instinct of a soldier. Nothing. No footprints. No signs of pursuit. Just the jungle breathing its endless breath. Inside, she stirred. Her silver eyes opened slowly, catching the sunlight, and for a moment Jack forgot how to move. She looked almost human, almost ordinary, until she rose to her feet. The grace of her movement was different, fluid, as if she were shaped by another world's gravity. "You are awake," Jack said, his voice low and rough. She gave a small nod, her wet hair falling down her shoulders. "Yes, and thank you." "You saved me." Jack frowned. "I did not save you. I only gave you shelter." That is all. Her lips curved into a small, almost teasing smile. "For me, that is the same thing." Jack turned away, hiding the conflict in his eyes. He did not know what she was, or what trouble she carried with her. But for now she was here, in his cabin, and he could not bring himself to throw her back into the storm. The days passed. What began as silence slowly shifted into something else. She moved around the cabin as though she had always belonged there. She helped him cook, though she had never seen fire used that way before. He showed her how to cut vegetables, how to season the stew with jungle herbs. She watched him with fascination, her silver eyes glowing softly as she repeated his every movement with delicate care. Her laughter was the first thing that broke him. It happened when she tried to lift the heavy pot from the fire and nearly tipped it over. Jack caught it just in time, and she burst into laughter, a sound light and musical, so strange in the rough cabin air. Jack felt his chest tighten, not from danger, but from something he had forgotten he could feel. At night, the bed was still shared, though Jack kept to one side, his soldier's discipline holding firm. But the warmth of her presence was impossible to ignore. Sometimes in the middle of the night, he would wake to find her watching him, her silver eyes soft, her expression unreadable. She never said what she was thinking, and Jack never asked. But he felt it, the quiet bond growing between them piece by piece. A glance here, a word there, the way she began humming softly as she cooked, the way she smiled when he taught her something new. One evening, as they sat by the fire, she spoke suddenly, her voice quiet but steady. "You live alone." "By choice." "Why?" Jack stared into the flames. "Because people take too much. Out here, the jungle asks for nothing. It gives me peace." She tilted her head, her long hair falling like a curtain over her shoulder. "Peace or hiding?" Jack turned to her, his eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" Her gaze held his, unblinking. "You carry war inside you. I can see it in the way you move, in the way you never truly sleep. You did not come here only for peace. You came here to escape." The fire crackled between them. Jack said nothing. She was right, and he hated how easily she had seen through him. But before he could speak, she lowered her gaze, her voice softening. "I know what it means to run." Jack frowned. "Run from what?" Her silver eyes met his again, but this time they held a shadow of fear. She did not answer. Not yet. And for the first time since she arrived, Jack realized, whatever she was hiding, it was only a matter of time before it reached his door. The days slipped by like smoke in the wind. Jack noticed the change in himself before he admitted it. He smiled more. He spoke more. He no longer sharpened his knife every night like a ritual against the silence. The woman, whatever she was, had filled his cabin with something the war and the jungle had never given him. But she was restless. Jack saw it in the way her eyes flicked toward the trees when the wind carried strange sounds. He saw it in the way her laughter would break suddenly into silence, as though a shadow had passed across her heart. One night the shadow became too heavy to hide. They sat by the fire again, the jungle whispering outside. Jack stirred the stew with a wooden spoon, while she sat cross-legged on the floor, her long black hair shining in the firelight. Her gaze was far away. "Jack," she said suddenly, her voice carried weight, as if each word had been chosen carefully. "You deserve to know the truth." Jack set the spoon down. His instincts sharpened, the same way they did before a battle. "Go on." She took a breath, her silver eyes meeting his. "I am not from this world. You already know that. But what you do not know is why I am here." Jack leaned forward, silent. "I was promised," she continued, her voice trembling, "to a man who holds power across my people. A leader, a conqueror. He does not love, he only takes. And when he saw me, he decided I would be his." Her hands tightened in her lap, her knuckles pale. "I was to be his bride, not by choice, not by desire, but by force. And I ran. I ran as far as I could, across the stars, across the darkness, until I fell to this world." Jack's jaw clenched. He had seen tyranny before. He had fought men who thought power meant ownership, but something about the way her voice broke twisted in his chest. "He sent his soldiers after me," she whispered. "Commanders loyal to him. They will burn worlds to find me. They will search every jungle, every village, until I am back in his hands. And if they find me here," her voice faltered, "they will kill you." Silence. The fire popped, sending sparks into the air. Jack sat still, his face unreadable, his mind sharp. Finally he spoke. "So you came to my door because you were running from him." Her eyes shimmered. "Yes, and because I had nowhere else to go." Jack rose slowly, standing over her. His shadow stretched across the cabin wall. "And now you have brought them here." Tears welled in her eyes, though she did not let them fall. "I am sorry. I should have kept running, but I could not. I was so tired, and when I saw your fire, I hoped." Jack stared down at her. The soldier in him screamed to push her away, to send her back into the storm, to keep his peace, his solitude, his safety. But the man, the one who had been broken and hardened, saw something else. She had chosen to trust him, and that trust had weight. Jack's voice was low, steady, the way it was when he gave an oath. If they come, they will have to go through me. Her eyes widened, silver shimmering in the firelight. Jack, do not mistake me, he said sharply. I am not a savior. I am not a hero, but I will not hand you to a man who takes without asking. You want to run? Then I will run with you. You want to fight? Then I will fight with you. Her lips parted, but no words came. Only a tear, finally breaking free, sliding down her glowing cheek. And for the first time, Jack realized he was no longer living alone. He had already chosen. The jungle was no longer quiet. At first it was distant, smoke on the horizon, the faint echo of screams carried on the wind. Jack noticed the change in the animals, how the birds no longer sang at dawn, how the monkeys fled through the canopy in restless silence. The jungle always spoke before blood was spilled, and now it was screaming. The woman knew it too. Her silver eyes darkened each time she looked toward the horizon. One evening, as the sun bled red behind the trees, she whispered, "They are here." Jack tightened his grip on the rifle. "How close?" Her gaze dropped. "Too close. They will scour everything. They will burn villages to the ground until there is nothing left." She was not wrong. 2 days later, the smoke thickened. Jack left the cabin to scout the ridge, moving silently through the undergrowth as only a soldier could. From the hilltop, he saw the truth. A village, or what was left of it. Houses blackened, fields burning, the ground scarred with strange tracks that did not belong to any earth machine. And moving among the ruins, figures, tall, armored, alien. Their skin glistened beneath their helmets, pale and ridged, their movements precise and merciless. They carried weapons that hissed with energy, cutting through wood and stone as if they were paper. Jack counted 6 in one group, searching, dragging survivors into the dirt, demanding answers in a language the humans could not understand. But Jack understood enough. They were hunting, and they were close. When he returned to the cabin, the woman was waiting by the fire, her hands folded tightly together. She did not need him to speak. She saw it in his eyes. "They found this world," Jack said coldly, "and they are tearing it apart to get you back." Her lips trembled. "Jack, you cannot fight them. They will kill you." Jack set the rifle down on the table with a heavy thud. "I have faced worse, and I will not stand by while they destroy everything in their path." Her silver eyes filled with fear, but also with something deeper, something like guilt. "This is my fault. Those people burned because of me." Jack stepped closer, his voice sharp. "No, they burned because of him, because tyrants do not stop taking until someone makes them bleed. I have seen men like him. I have fought them before, and I will fight again." The woman's hands trembled. She reached for him, then stopped, her voice breaking. "Why? Why risk yourself for me?" Jack's gaze held hers, steady as stone. "Because you asked me for shelter, and I gave you my word." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unspoken truth. Outside, the jungle crackled with smoke, the night sky burning faintly in the distance. The enemy was moving closer, step by step, tearing the land apart in their hunt. And Jack knew the time was almost here. He would have to choose to run, to surrender her, or to stand and fight. But deep inside, the choice was already made. The jungle burned. Orange flames licked the night sky, swallowing trees, swallowing villages. The air stank of smoke and blood. Jack stood at the edge of his cabin, rifle in hand, eyes sharp. He had seen war before, but this was different. The enemy was not human. Their cruelty was colder, their destruction precise. They did not fight for land or power. They hunted for her. The woman stood behind him, trembling, her silver eyes filled with sorrow. "You should leave me, Jack. If I go to them, they will stop. You will live." Jack did not turn. His voice was low, firm. "You think I built this cabin, lived through war, carved out a life in this wilderness, just to hand you over to a monster?" Her voice broke. "You will die if you fight them." Jack finally turned, his face hard as iron. "If I die free. And if you belong to anyone," he raised his rifle, chambering around with a sharp click, "you belong to no one but yourself." The first alien appeared between the trees, its armor glowing in the firelight. Behind it came 5 more, moving in formation, their weapons humming with deadly energy. They saw Jack. They saw her, and they advanced. The woman gasped, but Jack only stepped forward, the soldier in him alive once more. He shouted into the night, his voice carrying across the burning jungle. "You want her! You will bleed for her!" The aliens opened fire. Blue bolts of energy hissed through the air, cutting into the cabin walls. Jack rolled behind cover, firing back with sharp, precise shots. One alien staggered, its armor cracked, collapsing into the dirt. The others roared in their strange tongues, surrounding him. The woman cried out, her body glowing brighter as fear surged through her. Something deep within her stirred, a power she had long hidden. She raised her hands and a burst of silver light erupted from her palms, striking one of the alien soldiers and hurling it into the trees. Jack glanced at her in shock, but there was no time. 2 more soldiers charged. Jack swung his knife free, slashing one across the throat, while the woman's light burst again, blinding the second long enough for Jack to put a bullet through its skull. The ground shook. Another alien stepped forward, larger than the rest, its armor marked with cruel symbols. Its weapon was longer, deadlier, crackling with raw energy. The commander. He raised his blade-like weapon and pointed it at the woman. His voice thundered in a language Jack did not know, but the meaning was clear. She was his prize. Jack spat into the dirt. "Over my dead body!" The commander struck first, energy blades slicing through the air. Jack barely dodged, the heat searing past his cheek. He fired point blank, but the alien's armor deflected the shot. The two collided, soldier against monster, strength against will. The woman screamed, silver light spilling from her body, washing over the battlefield. For a heartbeat, Jack saw her true form. Not just a runaway, not just a bride, but something radiant, powerful, untamed. She was not weak. She was not property. With one final surge, Jack drove his knife into the commander's neck, twisting until the alien roared and fell, sparks crackling from its armor. Silence followed. The flames still burned, but the rest of the soldiers had fled into the trees, shaken by the sight of their fallen leader and the glow of the woman's power. Jack staggered, blood on his arm, smoke in his lungs. The woman rushed to his side, catching him before he fell. Her silver eyes shimmered with tears. "You fool," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You risked everything." Jack managed a faint smile even through the pain. "I told you, if she belongs to anyone, she belongs to me." Her tears fell freely then, glowing faint against his skin. And in that moment, beneath the burning sky, the soldier and the runaway bride stood together, not as protector and fugitive, but as something more. The flames died slowly. The jungle, once alive with screams and fire, fell into silence again. Smoke curled into the sky, blotting out the stars. Jack leaned against the woman, his breath heavy, his body aching from the fight. Yet he stood. He was still alive. The woman's glow softened, fading to a faint shimmer as she steadied him. Her silver eyes searched his face, as though afraid he would vanish before her. "You should not have done that," she whispered, her voice trembling. Jack gave a tired smirk. "I have never been very good at doing what I should." She laughed softly, though tears still lined her cheeks. It was a fragile sound, but it carried hope. Together they walked from the burning ruins of the cabin into the depths of the jungle. The world behind them smoldered with destruction, but ahead there was freedom. For days they moved through the wilderness, traveling deeper than Jack had ever gone. He led her across rivers, through thick walls of trees, past cliffs where the stars stretched endless and untouched. She kept close to him always, her hand brushing his as if to remind herself he was real. One night, as they sat by a small fire beneath the canopy, she turned to him, her face glowing faintly in the firelight. "Jack," she said softly, "you could have walked away. You could have given me up. Why did you choose me?" Jack stared at the fire for a long time, the flames dancing in his eyes. Then he turned to her, his voice steady. "Because for the first time in years, I felt alive again. And because you asked me for shelter, I gave you my word. I do not break my word. Her lips trembled, and then she smiled. A true smile, radiant and free of fear. Then I will give you mine. I will not run from you. Not ever. They sat in silence, the jungle whispering around them, the stars glittering above. Two souls, one scarred by war, the other scarred by chains, bound together not by fate, but by choice. The alien commander was gone. The tyrant across the stars still ruled, but his reach had failed to claim her. And as long as Jack drew breath, it always would. Together they vanished deeper into the wilderness, where no soldier could find them, where no tyrant's hand could reach. Not as fugitive and protector, not as prisoner and guard, but as something far greater, as lovers bound by courage, as partners bound by freedom. And for the first time since he had built his lonely cabin, Jack knew he was no longer alone.